Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Laurel Broten, and I'm very proud, as has been said, to be President and CEO of Nova Scotia Business Inc., as well as a board member of the Public Policy Forum. Welcome to Pivot to Prosperity. I am pleased to be joining you from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Throughout my career, whether as a clerk at the Supreme Court of Canada, a lawyer on Bay Street, or an elected member of provincial parliament in Ontario, or while serving as a cabinet as Minister of Education, Environment, or Intergovernmental Affairs, among other portfolios, I am always been very passionate about public policy and how it can make positive impacts that in the end improve our daily lives. That is why it is my pleasure to welcome you to the second and final day of the Public Policy Forum's Atlantic Summit, Pivot to Prosperity. Thank you to everyone who attended day one last week. We had 250 people from Canada's maritime provinces, as well as many others in attendance, and many over 500 registered engaging with the on-demand content. I know you're all looking forward to our second day. I want to welcome the more than 100 people who are newly registered and are joining us for day two. A big thank you to all who extended invitations to their friends and colleagues. You can join in the conversation on hashtag Pivot to Prosperity on Twitter and LinkedIn. Today we have incredible speakers and interactive opportunities lined up. And I think that this year's theme summit, Pivot to Prosperity, is very accurate when we think about what is happening here in Atlantic Canada, across Canada, and around the globe. COVID-19 has changed every aspect of our lives. Certainly, the last few months have given us cause to pause, take stock, and reposition ourselves internally and possibly externally to adapt to changes brought on by the global pandemic. I know for us at NSBI, we have spent this critical time connecting with businesses across the province, talking about how recent events have changed the way we are currently doing and will continue to do business. We have talked with companies about retooling, managing their workforce to stay open, plan to open safely, how they're managing supply chains, how they're pivoting their business model so that they are globally competitive. We are also talking about how government and partners can help to advance the efforts. We know that export is a key factor in our region's ability to grow, so we're connecting to our networks nationally and globally to gain insights that are necessary for businesses to be prepared and ready to move forward. As a result of COVID-19, we're seeing seismic shifts in e-commerce, as well as trends on how exporting is being done differently. The fact that businesses can no longer hop on a plane to meet with customers or a trade show is forcing companies to look at new ways to develop these relationships. We are also seeing that companies are looking to improve productivity through automation and improved processes. And we are seeing a massive movement in employers embracing remote workforce, us included. We've gone from approximately 10% of our organization working remotely to 100%. We've taken our digital roadmap and we've accelerated our journey from 2 years to 2 weeks. And to give you perspective, our team went from having under 10 virtual meetings in February to over 400 by the end of March. And I know from talking to businesses that we work with, we are not alone. Companies like TD, IBM, RBC, and other ICT and financial services companies have moved to almost 100% remote work. And although there are some sectors like manufacturing, agriculture, and seafood that might adopt a percentage of the work from home model, there are other companies that are exploring a more permanent change to remote workforce, causing drastic changes in the nature of work. One of our pillars here at PPF is that transformations over such a short period of time give good reason for us to be having these conversations today. In some ways, perhaps we need to catch up on what's happening to ensure that policies are in place or working to protect the advancements we've made during this time. And in the midst of all this change, there are also barriers to prosperity that remain, and in some cases, they've been exacerbated by the global pandemic. Last week, Deputy Minister Katrina Tapley and Francis Maguire mentioned much has changed, but the demographic challenge has not. Migration, increased productivity, and youth remain central as a part of the answer to how we will grow in our region. Last week, we focused the conversation on immigration, and we heard some great examples of how organizations are working collaboratively and creatively to tackle the population and demographic challenges that our region face. We have heard about the Atlantic Immigration Pilot and other programs that are available to help them address labor issues. We also heard about strong partnerships with our universities across the province who have done a wonderful job in welcoming international students. The work was highlighted by David Dingwall and Vian last week as a key part of our region's value prosperity. As David mentioned, Cape Breton University's focus on retaining their international student population has been about their sustained effort. They have continued to develop international relationships, embrace reciprocate culture, collaborate with government and not-for-profits to enrich the opportunities for international students. I'm sure David never thought he would be purchasing not one but two buses to ensure that his students had a way to get to campus. But we recognize that this responsibility does not rest on universities alone. One of the speakers that we will hear from later this morning is Sean Spear, and he will highlight his report on people-centric economic development that 42% of international students leave because they say they cannot find employment in their field. And that's why NSBI works with employers to help them grow, be competitive, attract new investment so that they can create opportunities for students to stay and work in the region. One of those companies is AF Terrio. AF Terrio is an 80-year-old family-run boat building business in the rural community of Matagan, and they continue to innovate by making new investments in machinery and processes that align with the expectations and training received by post-secondary graduates. We also incent employers whom we work with to locate here to hire new residents and new graduates. And while existing challenges remain, we know that there are others on the rise. As we look to rebuild the region, we have an opportunity to do a better job of ensuring that we are broadening the benefit for all Atlantic Canadians. But we know that COVID-19 has set us back. Last Friday, Statistics Canada released their monthly labor stats stating that here in Atlantic Canada, when you compare May 2020 to May 2019, there is a 47% increase in men 25 and over identified as unemployment, and just over 100% increase in women over 25 identifying as unemployed. And we know for our region to grow, we need a more diverse economy. We need populations in all communities and regions to have opportunities and experience and benefit growth. It is issues like these that we can all play a role. And now more than ever, we need to continue to work together and have creative conversations. So today, like last week, is about hearing from leaders from across our region and the rest of Canada to learn more about the policy innovations that have and will continue to help Atlantic Canada progress and prosper in a post-COVID world. Before I introduce our first speaker, let me give you just a brief overview of this morning's agenda. Providing our keynote address will be the Honorable Dennis King, Premier of Prince Edward Island, whom I will introduce to you shortly to talk about the Atlantic Growth Strategy and the innovative policy approaches the group has taken to grow the region's economy and population. We will also hear from Sean Spear talking about empowering rural communities, which will be followed by an in-depth panel discussion. I would like to remind everyone that you will have an opportunity to pose questions to our speakers through the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we will open the chat for questions towards the end of each presentation. Before I get started, a final thank you to PPF and Ed Griesbaum for inviting me to be part of today's event.